Hey there everybody, this is Lee with Creative2xmom, and it is that time of the month once again, so get out your notebooks, your pen and paper, your library cards, open up an Amazon tab on your computer because we are going to be talking about the books we read in the month of December. So what better time of the month to curl up with a book than the week between Christmas and New Year's, and even that first week of January we are out of school, so I am creating a reading list myself as I watch these videos. This video is actually part of a collaboration with Ingrid at Mommy and Mia Homeschool Chronicles, so I will link her channel down below as well as the playlist. The ladies that contribute to this collaboration every month have some awesome ideas, and I've discovered some really great books and some really great authors, so I hope you will check it out. So this month I'm going to be sharing everything that I read as well as what we read with the kids. What I read personally, the first book I read was a book called The War I Finally Won. It's a sequel to The War That Saved My Life. I read the first book about a year ago, and I've been waiting very patiently for our library to get this second one. It's a young adult book set during World War II, during the time that they were taking all the kids out of London and shipping them to the country to keep them safe from the bombing. Well, at the end of that first book, her mother found the main character and her brother, brought them back to London. They ran away from her because she is not the most motherly person, and she was killed in a bombing. So the second book picks up 1 or 2 days after where the first book ends. It's almost an immediate turnaround. And she has to, this is a lot more about the war inside her head. She's very parentified, is always taking care of her brother. She has a hard time pulling together the type of person that her mother was versus the type of person that her guardian is now. They go back to the same woman that took care of them before. And who can she trust? And can she trust people? Because she's still in World War II, and she's still in this very tumultuous time in history, and she's still dealing with a lot of the scars and the war that's going on in her mind. Along the way, she meets a lot of other characters as well, a Jewish German girl who has escaped Germany, and what's going on with her and her family, and can she trust her. She deals with the death of a very good friend. And so this war really comes home, and so it's about dealing with World War II, but also dealing with the war that she is conflicted in her mind with her mother. Very good book. There was one issue that I had with the guardian, and it was kind of a moral issue. It was something that she was involved in, and it never directly comes out and says, this is what she did, but it's alluded to. It wasn't a make it or break it for me on the book, but I am glad that I read it ahead of time so that as my kids read this book and maybe others within the series, we can discuss kind of how we deal with that. So, very good book, but just something to be aware of. The second book I read was actually in my Kindle. It's called Homeschooling Middle School, and I will try to link it down below because I'm not sure who the author is. I think I spent around $2.99 for the Kindle version, and it's a lot about a lot of it was things that I needed to remember. That middle school is kind of this area of starts and stops. You take several steps forward, and then you might take a couple steps back, and it's a lot of not necessarily being behind, but reinforcing concepts, and it's a lot of learning to study, learning to take a test, learning to incorporate information from a textbook, because our kids are kind of moving into that preparation for high school. How do you take notes? How do you study for a test? That sort of thing. So it's a lot of good tips on how to do that. This is one of those books I will return to again and again. So $2.99 for the Kindle version, very good. I know she's also written a homeschooling 9th and 10th grade, which I will probably be reading in the next couple of months as I'm graduating an 8th grader this year. So very, very good, full of great information, ideas. Can't recommend that one highly enough. I kept a list this month of the books that I read, and I wrote down Christmas Secret. Don't have a clue. I don't even remember that book at all. So to me, it's a secret as well. I have no idea what that book was. I can't say if it was good or bad. I have to laugh because I've gone through my Kindle, I've gone through my library card. I have no idea what the book was. But But I do remember this one. I just finished this one. This is Firestorm by Nevada Barr. This was a library find for me. Somebody recommended this author. She writes books where the main character works with fire crews, but she works in the national park system. And you guys know we live very close to Lassen National Park, and that's where this particular book in the series was based. So I think this is book 4 of the series, but it was easily, you could read it pretty easily on its own. There's a little bit of a backstory with one of the characters that I would like to know more about, but I was able to pick up quite a bit of that just from reading this book. The main character she works kind of on the medical side with fire crews, and they have just gotten this fire under kind of contained. They're releasing a lot of the fire crews as they're doing mop-up and that sort of thing, and she's one of the last groups to leave. Well, it blows up one night. They go in to get this guy with a broken leg, and the fire blows up, and this crew is caught. So that's where the idea of the firestorm comes from. And the weather shifts, and they discover that somebody from the fire crew has been murdered in the middle of this firestorm. As the fire blew up, somebody was murdered. And so as they're all trying to survive together, they can't be rescued yet. The weather has turned. They can't get a helicopter in. And they spend several days out in the wilderness. She is also going through and she's questioning, she's putting pieces together because she's a detective as well. And she's trying to figure out who's the murderer, what was the motive, what was their opportunity, because they are in the middle of this blown up fire where you leave your fire shelter, you die. So what was this person's even opportunity to create this crime? And I will say I was completely blown away by the resolution of this book, because it's like the last person I suspected in the whole group. There is some language, which on one hand is very realistic if you've been around fire crews and firefighters. On the other hand, there were certain times it was just kind of, it felt like it was thrown in for shock value. So I went back and forth on that issue. There were times that I was like, well, that wasn't even necessary, but it was there. Good book. Would I read more in the series? I don't know. I did like this one because I loved knowing where the setting was and a lot of the towns and stuff. But and it's very well written. I struggled with probably the first 100 pages, and then once I kind of got in the rhythm and the flow of it, the last 250 pages went quick. So it was good. I just don't know if I'd read anymore. But Nevada Barr, if you're into mystery detective type books, good one. As far as what we read with the kids this month, we do a Christmas picture book advent in the month of December, so I could never list off all those books. We read a different one every night from Thanksgiving all the way to Christmas, so that was way too many books for me to list. But we did read several chapter books. In fact, we listened to Flora and Ulysses, which is absolutely hilarious. You have this squirrel that has been sucked up by a vacuum, and he comes out with superpowers. And what's his superpower? He can type poetry. So Flora is constantly rescuing Ulysses because they think that she's kind of gone a little crazy, keeping this pet squirrel, and she's constantly getting him out of scrapes and rescuing him from the other people in her life that think that they are rescuing her. Very, very funny. We listened to that one on audiobook, and I wasn't sure I was ready for that one to end. It was a very funny book. We also listened to On Christmas Eve by Anne M. Martin. You might know that name from the Babysitter Club series. I'm pretty sure she's the same author. This story took a turn that I didn't expect it to. It was actually a little sad. The little girl meets Santa on Christmas Eve, and she asks him to save her best friend's dad, who has cancer. And that's her Christmas request, and the story unfolds from there. All the magic of Christmas Eve, and can he perform this miracle, and will this happen, and what will happen to them as this progresses. It covers the span of about a year and about it was an audiobook for us, so in about 2 hours. Good, just maybe not as bright and cheery as I was expecting it to be. We also read The Bird's Christmas Carol. This is an older book that I read when I was probably 6th grade or so. You've got this little girl who was born on Christmas Day. They name her Carol. and she comes down with a mysterious illness. They never really share what, but it's debilitating, and she doesn't really leave her room. So she watches these kids that live behind them, very poor family of about 8 or 10 kids, and she decides that for her birthday that year on Christmas, she's going to bring this family in. They're going to have a huge Christmas dinner. She sacrifices her Christmas presents to buy them Christmas presents, this whole thing. She's about 10 or 11 at the time of this book. Very good story, very good moral. It's a great one for your kids. I would say my little guy listened to it. I don't know that he totally got it, so maybe like 4th grade. And then the last one we read was The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. I have avoided this book for a time. I heard that they were kind of sassy. There's a lot of attitude in the book, but very redeeming moral at the end. They bring in this group of this family called the Herdmans, and they drive everybody crazy. They're always into trouble. They always have words flying out of their mouth that they shouldn't. And the Herdmans decide they are going to take over the Christmas pageant. So it's all about what they think of the Christmas story. And you hear the Christmas story through the eyes of somebody who's never heard it before, and the questions they would ask, and the response that they might have to Herod, or the response that they might have, like, what would they bring to baby Jesus? It's so funny, so funny. Lots of good opportunity to talk about appropriate behavior. Lots of good opportunity to talk about accepting those who aren't like us. Super funny book. I didn't think I was going to like it at first, but now it's probably one of my top favorite read alouds at this point. Definitely for this year, it's our top favorite read aloud so far. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you're reading. That felt like way more than I thought I had read. I'm totally shocked. Leave me a comment down below. I want to know what you are reading and what you're reading with your kids as a read aloud, or just what you're reading together. Also, don't forget to check out the description box below for all the links, the playlists, the books, everything that I have to share with you. There will be a whole lot. I hope you guys enjoy this one, and we will see you in the new year, 2019. Bye, guys.